Welcome, everybody, to another weekly DAO call with Unlock Protocol. Thanks for joining us. If you're listening into the stream or to the recording, small group today, but appreciate everybody for showing up. Thanks, Anupa and Cece. Glad to see you too. And if anybody joins in throughout the call, we will welcome you when you get here. So not a whole lot. Speak of, there he is, Regis Chapman, the man of the hour.
Yeah, the man of the hour.
We
How am I
just,
the man of the hour?
we just went live, so thanks for joining us.
Oh, okay.
And we've got just a couple of agenda items to go over, and then we'll give you the floor to see what you have to talk about, since I'm assuming you're here for a specific reason. But just to get the DAO stuff out of the way, so we have a proposal live on Tally that is going to be ready for voting in, I think, 2 or 3 days. So make sure you check that out this week. If you have unlocked tokens, your vote is definitely appreciated. So yeah, keep a lookout for that. And we also have a new episode of You Make Us with Anupa, featuring G2 with the Creative DAO. So that's going to be next week, I think on the 7th. And so make sure you put that on your calendar. Check out our socials. There should be links to it on LinkedIn and Twitter, X or whatever, and TikTok, I believe. Welcome, AFO. We're just going over the DAO updates, and yeah, that was pretty much it. I don't know if Cece, do you have any updates from marketing? I know that you were out last week, so I don't know if you have something you want to share with us about things that are going on with marketing.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Trix, and hi to everyone. Today we had the marketing working group call. We had a really good call coordinating some content posted by our contributors, and checking out the stuff on how to improve content on some channels like LinkedIn and TikTok. So it was really useful to understand the optics and the focus of everyone on those channels, and also understanding the algorithms that all of them have, because they are very different, and definitely the production of the content varies very much. But we had a really good consensus on what kind of content to produce for the next weeks. So hopefully with that, we will continue the flow and making progress on that side. And from my side, I am catching up on the marketing campaigns that we got pending, like the Cello campaign and incented campaign that unfortunately, because of last week of family issues, I couldn't join on that regard. So hopefully this week I can catch up and start making the launches of those campaigns, and continue that work with them. So that would be on the marketing side.
Awesome. Thank you. We do have an agenda item for AFO. Thanks for joining and getting on the agenda list. And then once we get through that update, then we will feature Regis Chapman and his updates for us on what he's been working on. But yeah, sorry, Regis, AFO has been on the agenda for a while, so we're going to let him go first. And I'm guessing that you'll have plenty to fill out the rest of the time at the end of the call. So we'll let you close us out. But yeah, AFO, go ahead. Let us know what's going on.
Yeah, so I got a short presentation. A little bit of a snafu with I was using Claude Design, which was been pretty great, but it's been crashing. So I have to access a previous version of the slides. It's still pretty accurate, so we should be fine. Yeah, let's get into it. So I think the first thing to level set, I know initially we kicked off like a focus with like unlock Cello and green goods. Just given some of the technical aspects and that's where we're at, we're deploying our first set of badges on Arbitrum. We will be able to deploy it on Cello, but just given like, you know, timelines and things of that nature, it was just easier for us to do this on Arbitrum initially. So yeah, so get to be more so talking about Greenwill than just green goods, because really Greenwill transcends across green goods and other protocols and regenerative actions that happen within our space. So it's kind of our substrate that we've used. Initially, we were using guild.xyz to basically track, you know, people getting POAPs, people following, you know, the Twitter accounts and socials as ways to show that they're involved in the Greenpool community. And we want to, you know, ideally over time, make it a more holistic regenerative credentialer. So it tracks on-chain acts of participation, contribution, and support, and it's portable, tied to an Ethereum address, etc. So let's get into it. So regenerative work happens on chain every day, right? People make contributions via attestations where you can track things like with green goods, where somebody uploads work. People are putting funds to support impactful projects, either directly, you know, sending funds or putting funds in a vault and providing yield. And a lot of this reputation and things are, you know, not aggregated into a holistic picture of, you know, regenerative action and impact. So the history of doing it doesn't travel. And what Greenwill is a credential layer for regenerative protocols. It recognizes on-chain acts of participation, contribution, and support, and each act becomes visible, portable proof tied to a single Ethereum address. So it's combining elements of like ENS, you know, on-chain actions and transactions, attestations, etc. And, you know, what is it not? It's not looking to replace roles, capital, or impact assets. It's really looking to give that, you know, kind of value that, you know, doesn't get recognized in a sense where like it's hard to capture and kind of measure. So we're doing a badging approach because, you know, similar to like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and different groups, these credentials, these things help to build a reputation, but in a way that feels not gamified and not, you know, points based and things of that nature. So the arc, kind of the three overarching things with Greenwill is that I am here, you're present, you have an identity, you participate, and then you contribute. You know, do some work, you know, show up, and then I supported. That's you know, donating, providing funds, things of that nature. And it's a one framework, like I was saying earlier, that's modular, meant to build up from a few of the different protocols we're building within the Dev Guild. So you can look at Greenwill as an aggregating framework where it has a registry, eligibility model, and an ENS identity surface. And we're using it with green goods. Public good staking is something we're going to be exploring in the future. And then, and this is the type I was talking about, and the Green Goose Network. So that's what, yeah, but that's meant to say Greenfield Network. That's funny about it. And our first initial badge we actually did, which I'm actually going to open up on lock right now so we could show off. Because we actually already did an initial Genesis badge on unlock. And I want to say October. So I'm just going to log in here real quick. All right, let's see if my locks load. Yes, it's loaded. So as it's loading, we did the Genesis badge, which was given to all the people that via Guild XYZ claimed Greenwill and joined the guild. And then now we're transitioning to using it under, you know, one of our set of tools, Green Goods, with this first set of badges with Genesis, first work, first support. And let's see if my unlock badge is loaded. Okay, let me just give it a refresh. Okay. I'll come back here once it loads, hopefully, because I want to be able to show. Oh, yes, it loaded. Awesome. Okay. All right. Let me go to this badge. I'm sorry, my internet's been like pretty slow today. There we go. Hopefully you guys can all see that. So this was our initial Genesis badge made by Nansel. It's a beautiful GIF showing, growth and yeah, planting a seed that now we're looking to continue to cultivate and grow. So going back to the slides, I'll stop here when it comes to the slides because these aren't accurate images of what the badges look like. I'll transition to Figma to show that. But like let's read it one more time. It's I am here, early alignment with green goods, witness on chain. And that's basically every person who joins Green Goods, signs up, gets a hat, gets the gardener hat when they become a gardener in a garden. And that's what we're using to give that badge out. And then the first work is tied to you doing your first submission under a garden, whether that's educational workshop or agroforestry work, waste management, solar, etc. And then first support is depositing funds into a vault. So that's going to gardens and supporting with funds that then the yield gets provided to them. Looks like someone's calling me, sorry. And then here are initial badges that Nansel created, and it, taking a minimal approach, and yeah, you can kind of just soak it in for a second. But we have the identity one, the Genesis, we have the first work, planting the seed, you can see it's in the soil now, and then you have first support, and that's, providing the protection, so that the plant can grow. And yeah, shout out to Nansel for doing that work. Now just pause on that, just let's soak in a little bit. And now transitioning to Earth Week and the actions that are going to enable people to get these badges, because anybody that participated, good work, is getting access to some of these badges. We did an Earth Week fund where we incentivized gardens to do an event during Earth Week, and we would give access to a cookie jar that provides them with some funding for that. So if I scroll up, and also I guess I should highlight the Funding the Commons. We were able to present there a couple weeks ago, and was very fortunate to win the contest they had between all the projects that presented, and we were able to get some support on our artisans project. And here are the Earth Week activations. So we have Greenfield Fungon, Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya, Nigeria again, New York City. Fungon with some images, which is really good. It was really, yeah, just I love being able to see that. Actually, let's blow this up a bit. Nice. And then we have Vida Verde, based in Venezuela. Also did some events. We have Green Sofa in Taiwan. And for Tech and Sun, they did a cleanup at the hub that's was just built and went live. So you can see all the cleanup done outside the beautiful hub. And yeah, it looks like, got a couple more things here. We got the artisans support. And yeah, that is the presentation. Of course, we'll have more updates, and we'd love to, maybe in a couple weeks do another more in-app showcase of what we've done and get feedback. Yeah, thanks for the time.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Always good to see progress that's being made. Exciting stuff. I love getting positive updates. This is good news that we all can feel nourished by. So thank you for sharing. And exciting to see how you guys, are utilizing these on-chain tools to do things that actually make a difference in the real world. So it's very exciting. Thank you. Thanks. And I also wanted to throw out a quick welcome to Stella. Good to see you. It's been a while. Thanks for gracing us with your presence. I hope you had a fantastic time away and fulfilled all your hopes and dreams. But yeah, I guess that's the rest of the agenda items. So for now, we will turn it over to Regis and let him wow us with his amazing updates and interesting progress that he's been working on.
Yeah, so I'm just going to share my whole screen out here, and so I've actually had three frame language articles released recently, and basically frame language is this basic idea that that the vocabulary with which you actually create your organizations is. Can you guys see my screen now? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the basic idea is that I've created these three perspectives basically that talk about what the actual different perspectives people have within Web3. And as some of you may or may not know, I've been working on a set of standards that are designed to improve coordination. I know AFO and some of the guys at the Green Pill level have been taking advantage of that as it's going on, and there's some of the first people that I've showed it to. But the basic idea is that there's kind of this idea that um, you know the words that you make end up creating the architecture or the structure of your organizations. And what I've noticed is that um, there's different misunderstandings that have occurred. One is the code is law idea. The initial thing was Lawrence Lessig actually warning people about turning code into law, and Web3 misunderstood that and took that as a directive rather than a warning. And so this is actually really very typical of the way in which a lot of these things happen. And so what I've noticed is that there's a kind of lens through which people lens reality, and they come into the DAO space or the organizational space, and they have a desire to do good, but all of their language is all based in what I'm calling frame one. And so the idea behind frame one, very simply put, is actually shown by just this one video here. So frame one is the leftmost thing. So you have a person, and then there's a shadow which is cast. And frame one thinks about that in this two-dimensional kind of way. And then frame two is, like, I'm just tired of living in this flat situation. What we need to do is actually build up. So if you're trying to describe a person, let's say, the light shadows, the shadows are cast on this person, but the frame one sees everything as the totality of the person is their shadow. And frame two, what they do is they would basically make like a sculptural, a set of conditions, a set of specific, you can build whatever it is that we need. So it's constructive or constitutive, or we can, if we build it, they will come, right? That's where that idea basically comes from. The problem is there's actually a real person who has an entire living version of themselves that cannot adequately be represented in any kind of way ever by the shadow cast or by a sculpture made. And so basically what I do is kind of decompose and explain and try to get to understand that these different approaches to the way frame language works are the reason why a lot of what's happening. And so what I've noticed is that people will come in with this idea that they want to build a frame, two idea of something. We can build something that'll be better, but then all of their language then imports the artificially extractive structures from frame one. And those of you who've known me for a while have been hearing me talk about this, but I haven't really had a really clear way to lay this out. So you guys can read this whole thing, and I've got other frame language conversations. And the way that I actually figured this out was initially was talking with an AI about the limitations that it was running into. And so in this thing, I actually show the actual conversation that took place that made me realize that there are just these hard limits on what an AI can actually do. And I also understand that what all of Western philosophy basically is a frame two construct. So what I basically did with that was created this thing called the Frame Language Analyzer, and I've done some evaluations, Unlock on Greenpill, on Nouns DAO, Aave, and OpenCivics. And so it's interesting because you can actually take a look at just publicly available documents, and I've got all these different links, and it's not just that I'm doing the analysis. There's actually the actual links to the things that are being evaluated. And in addition to that, I've also got this all the standards that I made, which is called the Coordination Structural Integrity Suite. These things are also being evaluated within that, and so you can kind of figure out what's happening. It tells you how much confidence it has in it, and so on. So if I were to take a look, for example, at the language evidence, right, I can see that there's all the frame one language stuff here. That's considered at the top. It'll actually talk about what the structural blind spots are. The conditioned language part of the thing. So frame two is all about, well, if we just create these better conditions, then everything will get better, right? And so, and then there's also these kind of misleading terms which don't have really good normative explanations for them. Part of the reason why I started doing the standards in the first place was because I realized that in order for us to do coordination better, what we needed to do is actually have a more precise way of doing things. And then later on, I realized that what we needed was not only a precise way of doing things, but we also needed a non-harming way of doing things. And so my new definition of what a regen actually is, foundationally, is that the nature of precision and non-harming are fused into one operative thing. They're not run in sequence. They're run exactly at the same time as though they were the same thing. And so only by really working with language in this way can you address the failure modes of these two individual things. So what's interesting about this is you can actually click on something here, and then it'll give you actually a whole set of things about why this is, not as precise as it could be, right? And so this actually gives you a way to go through your documents, your website, your whatever it is, and take a look at things that are not accurately represented in some way, right? And so it gets down into the fact that, if you take a look at, the word administrators is definitely a frame one version of things. Governance, just by definition, is a very frame one idea. So that indicates, basically governance indicates is that somebody says something and everyone else says how high, right? And so it kind of imports the structural idea every time you use it. And things like accountability, for example, words like that actually import the idea that accountability is really only a one-way street. It goes from the bottom and goes up to the top, right? There's typically no accountability in the other way. So yeah, I basically am proposing that we use more accurate language with which to describe the things that we're doing. And it's my fundamental proposition here that the difficulty that we have is when our intentions and our language are mismatched. So if you have intentions to do one thing and your language isn't either precise or accurately mapped to your intention, then it's a kind of canary in the coal mine about your failures. So there's a summary page here that can be printed and gives you kind of a specific idea about what's happening, depending on what you're talking about. What's interesting is if you take a look at the verbiage of Nouns DAO, for example, there's nothing really DAO about it at all in some way, because all of the language from I mean, like, look at 70% of the language that they have is frame one language, which is basically all about it basically claims to be a decentralized autonomous organization when the vocabulary itself constructs just a property rights investment vehicle. And the only thing that matters in a property rights investment vehicle is who has the most. And so the DAO has no effect really. There's no power, there's no nothing at all with respect to that. So yeah, there's a lot of totalizing language in their in their stuff it's imported. And if you go down and look and click on all of these, you can basically see the problems, with all of this, right? So, control over, with their votes. The one DAO, one vote thing has a giant failure mode in it, which basically Nouns DAO has been a victim of. They just had some people come in and buy their whole thing. And this is actually a problem across almost every DAO in existence that I've studied, is that let's say I win go back to Florida and win one of the Florida $1 billion lotteries. I could buy and utterly control and dominate almost every DAO in existence just because I wanted to. I could just buy my way into it. And it's a structural failure that that I've noticed across so many DAOs. And so this actually gives you kind of an actual analysis of the stuff that's in your own website and in some of your own documents. If you wanted to import your own documents and have a look at how they are, you can click on the analyzer and then paste the text in and take a look at, geez, how am I running these things? You can also fetch a URL to do a one-off if you want to. The catalog here basically is the org catalogs that I've done. And then the build thing is actually going to be addressing another failure mode of a lot of DAOs that I've noticed, in that they don't really set up a founding configuration statement. And so one of the major failure modes is just that there is no way to formally know what these people set out to do to begin with, and then there's no way to tell how far along they are toward their goals or anything. And so the basic idea is that what this will end up being will be part of the proof of coordination protocol on the front end, where people will show up, they'll be able to put in their founding configuration, and that will be recorded on chain, and then you can test, how often you want to be able to get into seeing how your entire approach is developing, right? So the big enemy here is the informal, all of these things have huge amounts of failure modes in them, and so I don't think that there is any other place you can go and look at something that will give you such an in-depth analysis of the language that is telling about how your organization is set up. And so that's what this is all about. So yeah, I've got dozens of these articles talking about not only this, but also the things that kind of precede it. The basic idea about the frame language thing is, if you've ever been to Ground News, right? The neat thing about Ground News is that one of the things that they do is they tell you about the framing. I mean, that's literally what this is. I mean, this entire website is based on framing. So you basically get to see there is a story, and then you get to see the way in which the left, the right, and the center is assessing a particular thing and how they're framing the entire thing. And so framing in many ways supersedes language, because it defines the limits of what is possible within the nature of how you describe things. So the vocabulary is structure, is code, is law. That whole idea, I think this is the latest version of and probably the most advanced version of my frame language framework. And I think doing a little bit of study on this and a little bit of analysis on your own language and your own organization is really quite useful. So I hope I'm happy to take questions or see what you guys think of this as an idea.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Regis. Exciting to see the progress. I know it's been a couple weeks since I've chatted with you, so
Mhm.
excellent to see how this is moving along. It's looking really good. I like the framing thing because it reminds me when I was in college a million years ago,
Mhm.
and one of the classes that I took was critical thinking and analysis.
Yes. Yes.
And the teacher started the class out with explaining basically the same concept of framing, but he defined it
Mhm.
as presuppositions and worldview.
That's right.
And so, in
Yes.
order to understand someone, you have to understand what their presuppositions are and what their worldview is, so that you can interpret, the information
That's
that they
right.
give. And I think that applies universally. So this seems like a really interesting and effective kind of methodology for identifying those things on more of an organizational level.
Mhm. So yeah, so the whole idea behind the standards and the protocol, the standards basically create a kind of set of boundary limits. So a lot of times, what people will do is they'll come in and create a DAO and then say, okay, now we're going to put in, let's say, a floor. So they have to do this, they have to do that. There's certain obligations and so on. And Unlocked DAO is actually quite nicely done in that. But they also, what they don't often do is put a ceiling in, right? And so if there's, and so because we think about purchasing anything as a property right, we often don't think that it's okay to put a limit on what someone can buy, right? And so now we have the billionaire problem. We have I mean, almost any number of failure modes come from either missing floors or missing ceilings, right? And so the whole idea is that if you bound this really well, then what you can do is it'll actually funnel your energy better. But if you have one side of it, it's just leaking everything out. Then the question is, uh, you know, it's not if it'll fail, but when, right? And so because the energy behind that is leaking out, and so yeah, so even looking at Unlock, right? You guys don't have a cap on token the property rights side of the picture for Unlock. So that's for me is a kind of a critical thing. What's interesting about Unlock is you guys are almost the best example of the difference between how amazing you all are personally, because I know almost all of you personally, and what you're trying to do, and the language with which you constructed some of the structural parts of the DAO. And so it's a concern to me for that reason, because I know where your intentions are, but I also know this imported vocabulary might be sabotaging or undermining the thing that you're attempting to do. And so of course, I didn't really realize that until I created this thing, but and you guys are better by a lot than a lot of other places, and the problem is that no matter how good of stewards you guys are, the structure always wins in the end. Do you know what I mean? You guys can really care and do a lot and adjust and all these different things, but the structure in the end, wins. And so you can actually look at this across any number of other things. And what you see a lot, this is true in open civics too, right? There's a lot of confused language. So there's a lot more frame 2 language inside of here, but there's also misleading or non accountable terms, or there's frame 2 imitation. That is to say, you make a claim, but then you don't have actually specific paths with which to back up this data. And so, yeah, this is in many ways a very brutal assessment of language. So I don't want to I don't want to sugarcoat it, but I made it because I feel like this stuff is not legible to most people. So I've given this out as a bit of an alpha to Cecilia and Coy and others, to kind of do a beta test with me a little bit. And I've as a result, created some assessments of some of the stuff in there. yeah, I hope that it will help you guys to more align the kind of people that you're trying to be with the language that you're actually using to construct your stuff. And so that's kind of why I made it, right? And sometimes you have the hardest things to tell people, difficult things, especially if you care about them a lot. And so, that's kind of why I made this. But frankly, I'm just tired of seeing so many of my friends' organizations that they work for years, tanking in the end because they don't have a sense of the vocabulary and their, the distance between their intentions and the structures that they're unconsciously building with, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know,
Yeah, I can appreciate that sentiment a lot, and I appreciate you sharing, this with the people that you care about, as we can all improve. I think that you really nailed a lot of it with just kind of the language of inheriting these things, right? So this happens a lot that I see because I'm a very analytical person and a very literal person in a lot of ways, but yet like oral tradition and social tradition is often inherited by a level of understanding that isn't always clarified in a very like literal way. And that's why AI is oftentimes so inaccurate and misses a lot of stuff, because AI doesn't inherit any of that cultural or social knowledge. It goes entirely off of literal knowledge, which is actually also a potential like gap in your tool, because your tool doesn't see the like cultural knowledge that is a part of an organization. And that's a problem for the organization. I'm not saying it's a problem of your tool. It's just like a gap to be aware of. And it can, your tool can draw attention to that gap where there's something that everybody understands within the group, but it's not documented properly in a way that,
that's exactly
demonstrates it.
Yeah. There are two main things that came out of my initial assessments of this, because I did organizations that I knew. One was their public face didn't at all match with their private one, right? I mean, everything that they said on their website and everything and how they actually conduct themselves were entirely different universes from each other. And that is another kind of indicator of this, it's a structural failure. If there's not alignment between your intention and what you're putting out into the world, and the way you're conducting yourselves internally, that's a sign that things are getting further apart. And so the whole idea behind the language actually is intended to surface some of this hidden stuff. And everything I'm doing is all about, making the hidden stuff legible. So, we can't care about each other if we can't have difficult discussions with each other. And so, so that's, I have to put the reality in front of people to shine a mirror on them a little bit and show the lens with which they're viewing everything, and they're excluding this giant amount of stuff around them without really understanding what they're doing. And so the more precise my standards became, the more I started realizing I was working within this lens. And then once I had to break the frame in order to be able to see things more fully. So yeah, this is not ready for release, but it certainly is. I've given it out to some of you, and I hope that this will actually end up being one of the free things that I release for the proof of coordination protocol in the UI. I'm calling Revelus and Praxis.
Nice.
Thanks, Regis. Just before giving up to Stella, what I was thinking is this kind of incongruences in the narratives of obviously organizations that come across in the marketing space, but obviously comes also to deal with internal culture and also how the protocol itself could really work. So those three lanes could have like very different languages and very different or many incongruences that could lead misinterpretations between the team, between the users, and definitely how people can or understand like what the protocol is, for example, and or how to engage with the DAO or with their organization. So it's really interesting to see that, and thank you, Regis, for that. I think it can help us to definitely come with a better structure on how we vocalize everything about our tools, our docs, our website, our all everything that we do, and definitely then translate it also into the marketing efforts that we definitely need to do, that in a very much coordinated and definitely in a in a one lane pace, so there is no gap that can mismatch with what we really want to communicate.
Well, and I just want to follow up with that 1 second before Stella. The thing is that you don't get to decide the frame of the person who's reading your stuff. So the next thing I'm going to design is something I'm calling the decomposition designer. And the idea behind coming from a frame 3 perspective is to try to design the decomposition so that the intelligence of the frame 3 author can actually propagate down. And then what that actually does then is create a ladder back up into frame 3 with practice from, because frame 3 isn't a language in and of itself. It's a attitude, it's a way of being, it's a way of embodying the knowledge. And so it's really important to have that design decomposition, because if you're designing a frame 1 tool, there is no ladder backup there. If you're designing a frame 2 decomposition, what they're going to do is go get some tools and let's build this thing. And there's no other language with which it's all about constructing something. And in many ways, all of Western philosophy is bounded by that. So yeah, so that's all I have to say about that.
Stella, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey guys. Thank you for the warm welcome back, Trix. That was so nice of you. Okay, so I'm also just catching up on all my messages. So I did not read your article yet, Regis, but I saw it. I was like, oh, that sounds fun. So I'm definitely gonna read it soon. Just a few things that came to my mind while I was listening. One is, I think our biggest Achilles right now as Unlocked DAO is that our doc's not updated. A lot of the information that we have developed in the last 2 years is actually, it's only visible in the Discord, right? So that's a big lack. The biggest problem in this was Danny and I tried to figure out once how to update something, and it just wouldn't go through. So Danny, I don't know if you can put this on your more upper end of your steward to-do list, but maybe let's just figure out on how can we update some of these things, because I was recently also thinking like, oh, it would be good to have this and that. So for example, right, when it comes to United Language, of course, a lot of the docs as they are now, they were written by the core team way back. So a lot of it is still actually valid, but it uses a very different type of language, because at that time it was a founded project and not a DAO necessarily, right? And even when it became technically a DAO, it still wasn't a DAO as an organization. So there's like all of these layers. So I would say, of course, language is mismatched, but I also agree, and this is why we did this as one of the first actions after I came in to Unlock DAO, was we had this workshop to really, really unite on what are we here to do, because everyone had like a vague idea of what the DAO was supposed to be, right? But once we started to have this workshop and this conversation over 4 weeks, we realized that while there was some alignment, actually not everything was aligned. And then as a result of that, we came up with the Unlock DAO Culture Guide, which is basically just 6 little rules, right? On empathy, on how to work with each other, blah, blah, blah. This is literally the membership that you mint to get actually into the Discord. So if you've ever wondered what this is, this is actually what you mint as a membership NFT. But yeah, all the documentation around this is actually not really anywhere, right? So maybe we are a little bit better than most other DAOs, but no one would ever know because we have not documented it, right? So it goes back to the same problem in the end. So yeah, good points, pointing this out and making us hopefully work a little bit on this. Because that would be definitely point that I would feel eager about fixing. Because from that we can source a lot of other things for marketing and so on and so forth. So yeah, thank you, Regis, for reminding us that the work never stops. Love you too.
Yep, that is so true. Koi, go ahead.
Hey everyone, let me show up here for a moment. Everyone, uh, I have some thoughts, but first I want to say that I also identify with this problem, Stella. In Green Brazil, we started. I think the first big action we did was Revision Rio de Janeiro. Like we did small pilots before with Agroforest DAO and internal rounds, but when we did Vision Rio de Janeiro, we got a kind of we went to another level, I would say, and on people's minds and what people were expecting from us, and the communication we were using at the time was also like definitely not the proper communication, not the proper language, like. We were trying to, at least since I was leading, I was trying to push to one direction, but I was using words from other direction while I was trying to figure out how they communicate each other and what they really means and all of that. So when I got in contact with Turkada's work, I think it started with the report. At the report that time, with Turkada's work around ethical funding and layered approach. And also, I remember he was proposing a different equation for quadratic funding, which is pretty interesting to take a look. But I remember that this inspired me to, not inspired me, but kind of gave me the words I was looking for, which was layered governance, polycentric governance, layered structures, layered, this idea of layering that I was doing intentionally. I was communicating in the wrong way. So this first interaction already gave me like this language, and now that I'm working with the with this coordination suit, I like to call it that way. It is a coordination suit. I'm getting better to recognize these words and improving like how I can help others to write their proposals and many things in this sense. So thanks Durgadas for that. One reflection that came is that it is kind of a trade-off, right? If you have worked on the communication since the beginning, maybe a critical failure, like not having a cap on the token, or this kind of thing that we were saying, like this becomes less, not less priority, but less dangerous, less critical, because we communicated well in the language. We did a good work on the language, and since you guys are doing also relational work to internally, it's not being communicated yet, but internally this work of like the frame tree work it's being considered kind of. So this is how I'm seeing. I don't know if Regis agrees, but this is kind of the trade-off I was saying. Like, yeah, maybe this is what you need to do now, but because you did a better work on the communication before and with the relations now, I think you are well positioned to be able to intervene and fill these gaps, which is different from my case because I'm not that ready to do this work because there is no we're still working on the relational. We are still trying to find this relational, which exists, but there is no shared language yet. There is no shared meaning being, but we are starting. The coordination suit, it's helping with that. So Durga has shared his article, and one of the guys on my community already shared in the community, and they were like, "Oh, cool, let's read."
Well,
So
I think
yeah, that's my
it's my point that I think it is a failure mode that we put that in front, right? I think we have to do both things simultaneously to make sure that our intention and the structure, because like I say, I'd hate for you guys for Unlock to end up like Nouns DAO, where just somebody can just come in and just take the whole thing over just because of the way that you structured it. It's a tragedy to me. The DAO is not at all effective in Nouns DAO now. You can have one or two people who veto anything because they have all the voting power, right? And so, it's so for me, it's like leaving your front door open or giving somebody your private keys or whatever. Like from a structural standpoint, this is what this leaves this open, and the fact that we have, it's such a common failure mode that almost every DAO in existence has the same property right idea about things. There's no cap. And so any standard that exists has a set of floors and a set of ceilings. So I have the 7 floors, that close gaps. And then there's 3 generative things that make, it's not all about closing gaps, but once you have a safe and a secure kind of house, then you can do a lot of neat stuff in the house. But if the foundation of that house is not good, then you cannot feel safe, you cannot act safely, and you can't generate the kind of things that I know all of you want to generate. And so for me, I just kept, so through my analysis, I just kept trying to find ways to make the invisible visible. So that's my whole game.
Yeah, thanks, Regis. We are coming up on the hour, and Google's going to kick us all out of here. So I want to make sure we wrap up all the conversation. I appreciate everybody for coming up and sharing their insights on this. This is a pretty deep topic. We covered it pretty quickly considering the depth of the topic, but I am looking forward to seeing more conversations come up around what people find. So yeah, if you're curious, check out Durgadas's tool and see what stands out to you and see if there's things that we can easily correct. There's probably some low-hanging fruit. Fixing governance is probably pretty high-hanging fruit. We've been talking and working on that one for quite a while, building reputation systems so that we can activate a little bit more of a controlled governance situation. But it takes a lot of intention and strategery to get there. So we'll keep working on it. But yeah, let's find some low-hanging fruit and see what we can do to improve things and express our shared language more precisely. But on that note, thank you everybody for joining. Another fantastic week, and we will see you next week.
See you guys. Thank you.
You guys.
Ciao.
Ciao.